if this plan of uncertainty involves other players outside of your own entity. And in this case, what is being forecasted likely will involve government and other players. So in some way, it reduces the uncertainty if those players are around the table. Whereas before you might plan to influence them, now the plan might involve them in some critical stages. But as you congregate towards looking at how do we overcome the bottlenecks of scale-up, then a new kind of theory of change is emerging, around which a more visionary plan occurs. How that occurs, we don't quite know yet, but that it's important that we consciously plan that. In some instances, it may represent the next generation of work that the Alliance is putting out. As you move to scale up, this involves a number of elements which you have to consciously engage with at the Alliance level. Because the Alliance level provides you the opportunity to think much more broadly, to set some guiding principles, to state clearly what those values are, and possibly to project what destinations you're looking at, which might be qualitatively different than the ones that you're currently dealing with. Even more important, and this was an observation we made, formulate a monitoring and evaluation plan as part of this process of what the Alliance level does. We have observed variously and have reported in the short papers we prepared that the fact that monitoring and evaluation is kind of repulsive in the way in which external agencies do it onto us doesn't mean we should not plan for monitoring and evaluation. Especially the kind of plan that denotes what our values are, what our principles are, and possibly what our methods for monitoring and evaluation are, so that we're better prepared to do it as a process of learning and empowering internally, but better prepared for when external agencies attempt to do monitoring and evaluation onto us in ways that we're not satisfied with, that we have quite a strong grounding in negotiating with them around questions of terms of reference, methods, and the ways in which information gathered from our organizations is used either to enhance us or in some cases to seek to destroy us. So we don't have expertise in the content of what you do, but at least the methodology of how you set up a vision for how you're going to achieve scale up, and also the benchmarking associated with it. So that's very useful. Our observation is that when an organization has no policy or strategy on monitoring and evaluation, then they leave themselves vulnerable to the policies and strategies of other organizations monitoring and evaluation. Understand the values, because evaluation is about values. The values and the principles that they have established for themselves as yardsticks for judging whether or not performance targets are being reached. In the absence of that, then you pick other conventions. So an evaluator comes with an outside value only because there is no compelling policy of the organization that he or she is going to evaluate. And so one of the fundamental challenges is creating for yourselves not only a theory of change, but also a policy and a strategy for evaluation. And that right from the beginning, the recruitment of an evaluator, if the person is external, is premised on an understanding of your policies and your strategies. If they are incompatible, then there is already a problem. The thing doesn't start. Including methods that you may want to recommend to be used in that evaluation. It would be futile if the person came with methods that are completely different from what you have been used to in both the planning and the implementation of your work. So that you are empowered in saying, look, even though this is being commissioned jointly by us and you, but we mutually agree that what approach is being used is consistent with approaches that our constituents understand. This institutional architecture that we've depicted also demonstrates a certain level of comfort that we're currently operating with. What we said in the course of the morning session was that when you look at this in the context of the next paradigm that you're seeking to go with scale up, the 5 elements that you tackled yesterday are likely to force you to draw a new institutional architecture, which now implicates much more strongly the relationships that you seek to engage in occupying the policy space, in leveraging additional resources around new mechanisms for financial instruments, in factoring in both the supply and demand side in technical assistance. So every element of this Venn diagram is going to be challenged by your notion of scale-up. And that notion, furthermore, has to be subjected to a thorough discussion about your own vision of what scale-up means vis-a-vis the current levels of operating, which are working, but working at sort of a low-key pace. Now you're scaling up to citywide, countrywide. So yes, while this institutional architecture may display some of the elements of what's going on now with factoring in how the relationships are entered into, a new one will have to be constructed along with a new theory of change, which then sets benchmarks and destinations. Monitoring and evaluation plan then comes in as part of guiding you to navigate to this new destination of scaling up on literally all the elements of your plan. Sort of paraphrase Sheila in sort of off-session discussions around the notion that for this to move practically, that we may need some engagement with both the alliance level and sort of leaders of the entity level to begin the conversation around how do you construct this theory of change, but especially how do you construct a set of principles, policies, and procedures that might guide monitoring and evaluation. Use the opportunity of Uganda, which is currently engaged at some complex levels, to depict the practicalities of this rollout. So that's one scenario that might, as it were, allow us to look at the 3 levels that Rajesh has talked about. It was important for us to reflect at the alliance level and see what things the alliance level can do to guide this process, while each entity level takes on their own specificity, but taking their own specificity with inspiration from the alliance level. That's the way I read it.